In this video, we're going to talk about early distributions from a trust. How do you go about getting one? When is it appropriate to do so? Hi, I'm estate planning attorney Richard Barid with Smith Barid LLC and one half of the Estate Planning Guys. So you're a beneficiary of a trust. You may not have a lot of idea yet of how a trust works, but you understand that mom or dad had passed away and left you some assets or a chunk of money or something, and they left it in trust. And you're not the trustee, you're relying on someone else to do that. So what if you need money? You have the money coming, you know what the basics of the trust say, but the trustee has some things to do before they start distributing assets. Is it possible to get an early distribution? The answer to that is my favorite lawyer answer: it depends. But it truly does. So some trusts are very specific and say that people can only receive distributions under these circumstances or at this time frame, or if they've completed certain things in their lives, college, getting a job, things like that. A trust can have almost any sort of requirements in it like that, but most trusts don't have distribution limits that are that significant. So the trustee may have the ability to do it, especially if there's no specific prohibition in the trust to be able to do so. So what you'll find is that trustees, there's a lot of, if not pressure, liability on trustees to do things right. And if beneficiaries of a trust think things aren't being done right or maybe not fast enough, it could turn into litigation. So usually trustees are very conservative in terms of meting out the assets the way that the writer of the trust, the grantor, the person who made the trust, the sort of rules that he or she set out. It's the easiest way for a trustee to do things without getting sued or without too much pressure is to follow very closely the words of the trust, the rules that the trust sets out. But that doesn't mean in the right circumstance you can't get an early distribution. So what are some times when it might be appropriate for to have an early distribution? Well, one thing is there a lot of cash in the trust? If everything's tied up in real estate and maybe investment in equities and bonds, it might take the trustee a little more time and some dealing with a CPA to do it in the most tax efficient manner. If the assets are all tied up like that, it really just may not work. But if there is a lot of cash in the trust and there aren't a huge number of beneficiaries, and this is key, if there's not a huge amount of unknown debt or a huge amount of known debt. If there's very little debt, maybe one or two or three beneficiaries who are getting along with each other, that's important. The trustee may feel comfortable enough to look at what your portion of this trust is going to be and carve out a little bit to get to you now, especially if you have a need for that, the kind of need that the person who created the trust would have wanted to help with. So how do you go about getting that distribution if you want it? It's not going to just magically happen. You, of course, can wait around until the entire trust is administered and you'll get your funds if the trustee is doing his or her job the right way, which ultimately they usually do. So the one way to get a distribution early is just ask. Talk with the trustee, and that trustee might want to have a conference with all the beneficiaries to make sure everyone's on the same page. But a lot of times, if there's enough cash available to do it, and we're not talking about a number that would really send the trust books off balance by a significant amount, the trustee may just agree to help you out. Because of course, if you're a beneficiary of the trust, usually that's a signal that the person who created the trust wanted to help you, wanted you to have this money or these assets, whatever they are. If that doesn't work, but you think your position is strong and there's the trustee is just being too conservative, especially if he's being too conservative to your detriment in not carving off some amount for an early distribution, you can file a suit in superior court. And the court that hears those disputes may differ from state to state, but here in Georgia, it's the superior court. And you can frame a lawsuit, usually hiring an attorney to do so, to go ahead and try to get an early distribution if you have a good reason and you feel like the trustee does not have a good reason for saying no. That can take a long time, but administration of a very large trust can take a long time too. So you just have to talk with a good attorney who knows about trust litigation and weigh the pros and cons like you would with any other kind of litigation. I hope that's helpful. Look forward to seeing you next time. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please click below to subscribe and hit the little bell so you'll get a notification every time we post some. Right now, we're posting about 3 videos a week with all kinds of useful estate planning information. So click right down here so you don't miss anything about estate planning, and click right here on your screen for the next relevant video.